Hello, I'm Edward October. Over the years, I've narrated more ghost stories, horror shows, and creepypastas than I can count. And yet, the crimes discussed on our true crime podcast managed to scare the shit out of me. This program is not suitable for children or the faint of heart. If you are such a person, go ahead and switch off this podcast. Listen to something else. Are you still with us? Well, we've warned you.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, Cam, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty darn good. How about yourself today?
I'm doing very well. Spring has sprung. It is Easter this Sunday, if you can believe that already.
No, I cannot.
It's going quick.
Right?
Telling you, going
Crazy,
quick.
I tell you.
Oh,
Crazy.
no.
So, I hear you have a case for us.
I do have a case. This is requested by a listener, Trish Miles.
Thanks,
requested
Trish.
This. Thanks, Trish. And we're going to Australia
Ooh, okay.
today. All right?
Yeah.
This is a tough one. We'll get through it together.
Uh-oh. No,
Ready?
I don't like that. Yeah.
For most of us in the developed world, social networking is now just a normal way of life. Millions of people use online platforms like Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Snapchat. But 28 years ago, when the very first social networking platform, 6 Degrees, was first started, many homes didn't even have personal computers, much less smartphones that allow us to carry the internet in our pockets. And while the internet certainly has its positive side, in those early days, humanity was still blissfully unaware of the time-consuming, deceptive, and pervasive side of the internet that they were about to encounter. Not surprisingly, the demographics that were damaged the most by this shiny universe in the box were, and still are, teenagers. And the reason teenagers are more gullible and at risk has to do with brain development and chemical makeup. According to the Arizona Association for Foster and Adoptive Parents, during adolescent brain development, the rewards of social connection, which is controlled by the limbic system, outpaced the ability to think about consequences, which is controlled by the prefrontal cortex. So adolescents seek novelty and strong emotions, and that sometimes puts their health and safety at serious risks. Another study showed that only about 9% of teenagers can tell the difference between real and fake information. This makes them particularly susceptible to online conspiracy theories. It also makes them easy targets for adults with nefarious motivations who carefully groom them and convince them of a different reality. There are also adults who fall for these online grooming, right? Mm-hmm. All the time. Mm-hmm. So you can only imagine how much easier it is for teenagers to become victims. In 2007, the ease with which one of these online predators was able to groom, lure, and murder one 15-year-old girl in Australia would not only rock the nation, but it would make headlines globally. It was a horrifying wake-up call. The world suddenly realized that the darling invention of social media had teeth, and it could bite. MySpace was founded by Chris DeWolf, Tom Anderson, and John Hart in 2003. It was the first social network to reach a global audience, and it was the largest social networking site from 2005 and 2009. VampireFreaks.com was created by Jet Barrelson in 1999, and it began with a small number of forums dedicated to goth and industrial music, and it soon grew into a large social network. It also morphed into an online clothing store for the goth scene, and in 2020, the social network part of the website just finally folded. But it was there on both sites, MySpace and VampireFreaks.com, that in 2005 would ensnare 14-year-old Carly Ryan, living in Stirling, South Australia, with the promise of friendship and true love. Stirling, South Australia, is a suburb of Adelaide. The town is near wineries and just a short distance from St. Vincent Gulf with an array of scenic beaches. It's one of those towns that offer a lot in the way of charm, but doesn't offer much for the young people to do. Just kind of like the town we grew up in.
It is.
14-year-old Carly found a world online. Even if it wasn't necessarily the real world, it was a place where she found acceptance. She discovered people who liked the same things, dressed the same way, and listened to the same music as she did. The goth and emo subcultures flourished at the time, and Carly, with her ivory skin and deep dark brown eyes, captured the look perfectly. But however, as much as Carly loved that subculture's music and fashion, she never embraced that brooding behavior that often went with it. She was unique, creative, and caring. Carly also had a very close relationship with her mother, Sonia, and often shared concerns about friends who were struggling. In general, she had a positive outlook on life. Carly wasn't on these new social media sites for long when she became friends with a musician named Brandon Kane, who went by the handle Corrupt Koala. Brandon was a few years older than Carly. He was well-traveled and a bit of a rebel. Born in the U.S., in Texas, Brandon was now living 8 hours away from Carly in Victoria, Australia. The two initially bonded over their love of music, and soon, Brandon regaled her with stories of growing up in the wide open spaces of the American Southwest and traveling to other exotic places. Carly hung on to his every word. Soon, she shared with her mother that she had met this awesome guy by the name of Brandon Kane. For Sonia, this whole internet thing was new. She came from a world where you dated boys that you could actually see in person. So she wasn't too worried about this budding romance. But she did notice that her daughter became more and more engaged with Brandon, to the point where she often excluded real people like her schoolmates and neighbors. Carly had stars in her eyes when she talked about Brandon. She exhibited all the behaviors of teenage girls go through with their first love. Sonia Ryan said that she would often look over her daughter's shoulders or check her daughter's devices just to see what the two were talking about. The messages and conversations that she saw between Carly and Brandon seemed harmless. She thought it was a bit worrisome that her daughter put so much emotion into a relationship that she thought was never going to amount to anything. But Carly seemed happy with the situation, and he lived hours away, so what could possibly go wrong? So far, there hadn't been any red flags to make Sonia worried. There was this nagging feeling in the back of her mind, though. She was a little uncomfortable with the situation, but she couldn't quite pinpoint why. So she got her own MySpace profile to keep an eye on them. Eventually, she settled into accepting Brandon as part of Carly's life and took solace in knowing that he was 8 hours away. The young couple eventually exchanged email addresses and even phone numbers, and Brandon quickly became Carly's entire world. When Carly and Brandon started making plans to be together in the future, Sonia didn't panic. Teenage girls often plan future weddings with each new boyfriend that comes along. Carly was only 14. There were plenty of years before Sonia needed to worry about anything. As Carly's 15th birthday approached, the couple had been dating for well over a year. She still hadn't physically met Brandon. She knew what he looked like. She knew the sound of his voice. She knew everything about him, but she'd never actually met him in person. So she asked her mother if she could invite Brandon to her birthday party. As Sonia saw it, one of two outcomes would be from Brandon attending Carly's party. Her daughter would either meet Brandon and discover that they really weren't meant for each other, or they would get along wonderfully, and Sonia could set aside any doubts about his intentions. And besides, wouldn't it be safer to have the two meet with lots of people around? The party seemed like a perfect place to meet this mysterious musician from Victoria, so Sonia agreed. But much to Carly's disappointment, Brandon said he couldn't attend her party. He was going to be in the U.S. on a long, extended Christmas break. However, Brandon added, his father, Shane, was going to be driving through the Adelaide area for work that weekend, and, he could stop by in lieu of Brandon, to bring her presents. Carly, who had been getting to know Shane on MySpace, thought that was a brilliant idea. She believed Shane was going to be her future father-in-law and part of the family, so she was very open to meeting him in person. Shane was a former SAS commando, which is a special air service, special forces unit, and now was a bodyguard for celebrities. Carly had been impressed by the fact that Shane had hung around musicians like Marilyn Manson, and she loved hearing his stories about working for celebrities. But when Carly asked her mother if Shane could come to her party, Sonia was a bit hesitant.
Yeah.
Thank you. Carly begged her mother to let Shane come to her party. I mean, not only did she want to meet somebody from Brandon's family, she wanted to make a good impression. Sonia was still hesitant, but finally agreed that he could come only if he met with her first in a public space.
Mm-hmm.
The week of Carly's party, Shane met Sonia in a public location on the main street in Sterling. He showed up wearing a polo shirt with the name of his security company imprinted on it. He was an average-looking, late 40s, crooked teeth, thinning hair, and slightly pudgy. He showed her his ID, which had his name, address, and occupation on it. Sonia's misgivings gave way to trust, and since he didn't have a hotel reservation for the week, Sonia said he could stay in her spare bedroom. It seemed the least that she could do.
No.
This was 2007. I know. It's
still
scary.
No.
I know.
You don't know these people.
In the days leading up to the party, Shane took Carly to the mall in Adelaide City to go shopping. He showered her with gifts. He bought her t-shirts, a corset, bags, and underwear, whatever Carly wanted. Shane bought it for her.
The adult man bought this 14, 15-year-old girl underwear?
Thank you. It's red flag right there. I know. He spent over $1,400 on her for gifts. And at one store, a shopkeeper would later say that she witnessed Shane peering over the changing room door, watching Carly undressed. But since the two were obviously together and Carly didn't seem distressed, the clerk really didn't think more about it.
It's no.
Yeah, I know. Shane attended Carly's birthday party on January 26, 2007, wearing a Marilyn Manson t-shirt and eyeliner.
Shane did?
Shane did, yes, the 48-year-old. He seemed to get along well with everybody at first. Then, as the night wore on, he began to exhibit disturbing behavior. At one point, he threw a temper tantrum because Carly was speaking to an ex-boyfriend. Shane claimed that he had gone to the other room and phoned Brandon to tell him about it, and that Brandon wasn't pleased with her behavior. So Carly agreed to quit talking to her ex. Later, Shane encouraged other teenage girls at the party to kiss each other in front of him.
Oh my God.
One partygoer said they overheard Shane say to Carly, quote, "I love you. I would never let anything happen to you. You are beautiful." When Sonia got up the next morning after the party, she walked by her daughter's bedroom and found Shane, who was supposed to have slept in the spare bedroom, lying on Carly's bed beside her daughter. Both were asleep.
He's in her bed? On her bed?
Yep, although Shane was fully dressed and on top of the covers, yes. That did little to assuage Sonia, who flew into a fear-driven rage. She demanded that Shane leave her house and never come back. She also banned him from having any contact with her daughter, Carly. Angry, Shane exited quickly, leaving Carly upset and in tears. And Carly begged her mother to make things right with Shane because she was worried that this misunderstanding would jeopardize her relationship with Brandon. But Sonia stuck to her guns and told Carly, you know what? Quote, "There's something not right." And then Carly finally admitted to her mother that, yes, Shane was a creep. He had lifted her skirt, tried to get into her pants, touched her inappropriately, and propositioned her for sex. He even told her, quote, "Brandon won't mind if we did it." Carly told him no, and he was, quote, "old, fat, and gross."
Did she say that to him?
Yeah. Shocking.
I mean, I like that she had the
chutzpah, yeah,
to do that.
While Shane had given Carly her presents from Brandon, Carly hadn't opened them in front of anyone. She waited until later, and like his father, Brandon had given Carly hundreds of dollars worth of clothing, including lingerie and a nurse's uniform. She's 15.
Oh.
15.
Oh, wow.
Suddenly, Sonia didn't see an average guy when she looked at Shane, and she knew he was a predator with his sights on her teenage daughter.
Ugh.
Sonia emailed Shane immediately and told him to stay away from her daughter or she would notify the police about this inappropriate behavior. And if Sonia hadn't been afraid before, his response to this email would be enough to terrify her.
Oh, no.
He wrote, quote, "Bitch, please. That email was so full of lies and hearsay, and I am disgusted that someone with a reasonable intelligence could believe such crap to be true. The things you called me were totally defaming, and I have forwarded the email on to my solicitor for further action. I sincerely hope you have insurance against lawsuit. You will need it. I will go to court as a decorated SAS officer while you will go in as a bitch."
Oh, man.
To try to keep a handle on the situation, Sonia temporarily suspended Carly's internet access. Sonia's threats seemed to work as there was no more contact from Shane. However, Carly desperately wanted to clear things up with Brandon. She had hoped that the confrontation with his father wouldn't interfere with their relationship. A few weeks passed, and on February 19th, 2007, Carly told her mother that she was taking a bus into Adelaide to go shopping with some friends, and she would be spending the night with one of them. Carly put on a leopard print dress, packed a bag, and hugged her mother goodbye. In fact, she hugged her 4 times, each hug tighter than the last. "I love you, Mom," she called out as she headed for the bus. The next morning, on February 20th, 2007, the phone at the Ryans' house rang, and Sonia answered it, not realizing that at that very moment, her life changed. From here on out, her life would be divided into 2 parts: before the phone call and after the phone call. A person on the other end of the line told her that they'd found a purse on a footpath in a suburb of Adelaide. Inside was Sonia Ryan's phone number, and the caller just wanted to return the lost items. Fear prickled Sonia's spine. Her daughter's purse was found in an area that was nowhere near where Carly said she was going, nor near the friend's house where Carly had said that she would be staying overnight. Sonia immediately rang Carly's phone but got no answer, and panic started to take over as she phoned the police to report her daughter missing. What Sonia didn't know at that moment was that earlier that morning, at 6 a.m., a woman out for her morning walk along Horseshoe Bay in Port Elliot had made a shocking discovery. There, amongst the pristine coast and deep blue waters, was a teenage girl floating face down in the bay. Unable to wrestle the girl from the bay on her own, she ran for help. She found a fisherman who ran back with her to the spot where the girl's body was, and he dragged her from the water. The girl's neck, face, and arms were covered with numerous bruises and lacerations, and her clothing was disheveled. While waiting for an ambulance, the woman and fisherman administered CPR, but emergency workers knew as soon as they saw the body that there was nothing more that could be done for the girl. She was dead. The police knocked on Sonia Ryan's door shortly after Sonia filed the missing persons report. One of the officers had tears rolling down his face. He informed her that they had found a body in the bay matching her daughter's description, and now Sonia had to go and identify the body. The body in the bay was her beautiful, vibrant, spunky daughter, Carly Ryan. The autopsy report revealed that the last moments of Carly's life were nothing less than brutal. She had more than 19 different wounds. 6 to 8 of those wounds were to the head, which was made either by a fist or a blunt object. She wore different clothes than she did the day she left, and her pants were on inside out. Her underwear was found nearby, and the coroner concluded that she had been raped. Also nearby was the tip of a latex glove. Judging by the sand found in her lungs, the coroner suspected that somebody had held her face down on the beach in an attempt to suffocate her. Her killer eventually threw her body into the water, and unable to save herself due to cranial facial trauma, she then drowned. Most experts believe that she could have been alive as late as 5:30 a.m., just 30 minutes before being found by the woman taking her morning stroll. When the police interviewed family and friends, none of them knew why Carly was in Port Elliot or who she was with. Police scoured the CCTV footage and found Carly with 2 men. one older and one younger, in Victor Harbor, just outside the Crown Hotel. They also spotted her at a fish and chip shop for lunch and a Subway for dinner. All 3 times she was in the company of these 2 men. Witnesses, they were a couple, said that they had seen Carly with 2 men sitting on a rock at a beach at around 8:30 p.m., and they were close enough to see the group, but they weren't close enough to hear the conversation. The couple left at 9:45 p.m., and it was the last time Carly was seen alive by anyone other than her killer. Police began investigating Carly's online presence. She had 3 different profiles on MySpace, but only one of them was visible to the public. She had last logged on the day before she died. Now, the media tried to make a link between Carly's MySpace profile, which showcased her interest in the emo and goth subculture, and her death. They pretty much insinuated that her interest in that subculture was what got her killed.
No, absolutely not.
But as we know, the darker and more salacious the story, the more the papers sell. Meanwhile, the police received tips of a light blue car with Victoria registration plates parked in various places throughout Port Elliot and Victor Harbor on the day Carly was there. The same car was also seen parked on Horseshoe Bay. One observant citizen even noticed that there was a security guard ID on the dashboard of the car. This was all the police needed to lead them to a house in Rosebud on the Mornington Peninsula, located just south of Melbourne, Australia, just 11 days after Carly's body was found. Inside the house was a 48-year-old Gary Francis Newman, a divorced father of 3. He was found sitting at the computer, logged on to a social media account, chatting with a 14-year-old girl in Perth, Australia. Before it was all said and done, they would find that Gary Francis Newman had more than 200 fake online identities. He was into extreme pornography, especially of young women dressed like schoolgirls. Gary had even tried to rape his own 13-year-old daughter after getting drunk. Sonia and Carrie Ryan knew Gary Francis Newman. He'd spent the night at their house and taken Carly shopping. But they knew him as Shane, the father of Carly's boyfriend, Brandon Kane. Only it became apparent that there was no Brandon Kane. Gary Newman pretended to be both Brandon Kane and Brandon Kane's father, Shane, which, side note, Shane Kane, come on. Carly had been interacting with, falling in love with, and sharing all her secrets, wishes, and dreams with a 48-year-old sadistic pedophile.
Pervert.
All while believing that this boy was an 18-year-old musician. For 18 months, Carly believed Brandon Kane. She believed in him. She believed he was real. She believed he loved her.
She's a kid.
He had pulled the wool over all of their eyes.
Yeah.
And like the security shirt, like when her mom went in the middle of town and, Sterling to see him and meet him, that security shirt was a fake. The ID was a fake.
Oh, yeah.
And he had them made just to fool them.
Oh, yeah. I knew that was coming.
Investigators found thousands of pornographic images of adolescents on Gary's computer. Gary had an elaborate online world complete with binders filled with meticulous notes on each fake identity.
He's got to keep up the ruse.
He would find a target, create a profile, and tailor it to entice that particular girl specifically. So whatever band she liked, whatever sports team she liked, so did he. Then he would slowly start to talk to her and build her trust. The day after Carly's murder, Gary Newman logged on to MySpace as Shane and deleted all interactions with Carly. He deleted Brandon Kane's profile altogether. But, of course, police...
We know
they were able to retrieve all that information.
Doesn't go away, people.
They also found a handwritten note with Carly's contact information, which he had labeled, quote, the Adelaide slut. And next to that information, he had written, quote, "Rest in peace, Carly." This guy is a monster. I mean, we've covered monsters before, but he's top.
I know this is too soon to ask, but was she his only victim?
Oh.
That's what I thought. Dang it.
Not surprisingly, Carly was not his first victim. See, look at you.
I know.
You knew that. That's my next sentence. Yep. There was a 14-year-old girl in the U.S. that he had groomed as well. He flew to the States to meet her under the pretense that he was a teenage boy that she had fallen in love with. But, of course, we know that boy never existed.
Mm-hmm. So was this his dad again? Did he pull the old dad trick again?
Mm-hmm. This is just Shane doing it all.
Yeah.
But we'll get to more into it later. But yeah, this is just all Shane. Shane's posing as these kids online.
Yeah.
Upon meeting him, she was horrified to learn the truth and spurned his attempts for sex. Enraged, he returned to Australia. Next was another 14-year-old, only this one lived in Hong Kong. He flew to meet her as well, but she failed to show up for their meeting.
Good.
And he was so angry over this girl's rejection that it's reported that he said that he was going to leave her looking like, quote, packaged meat.
Some people just don't deserve to breathe the same air we do.
Mm-hmm. Newman also had made his way through other girls in Carly's online friend group, just going from one girl to the next until he found one that took the bait. And sadly, that was Carly. She was naive and trusting and believed every word he said.
Because she's a kid.
Mm-hmm. Police surmise that Newman called Carly's house pretending to be Brandon when he knew Sonia would be at work. He then convinced Carly to meet him in Adelaide so that they could talk things through. There was just one catch. His father, Shane, he would be driving him to Adelaide, so Carly couldn't tell her mother that she was meeting Brandon because there was no way Sonia would agree to let her go if she knew that Shane was going to be there.
Mm-mm.
And finally, there it was, the thing that Carly had been waiting for all this time. For a year and a half, all she wanted to do was meet Brandon. And now she had her chance. And she fell for that too. And unfortunately, she got on that bus and rode it to a horrible fate. So the police believed that they had their man and they knew what had happened. There was just one very big loose thread. Who was the younger man seen with Carly and Gary Newman on the CCTV footage?
Yeah, who is that other guy?
It was Gary Newman's own teenage son that he had been reunited with. Mm-hmm. The boy had been in foster care system for some time and had only just returned to live with his dad a month prior to Carly's murder. There was evidence that both men had been at the crime scene. Investigators were able to match the sand on their shoes to the sand in Horseshoe Bay. And the sand in Victoria, where the Newmans live, was a completely different composition, thereby proving that both of them had recently been to Adelaide. Witnesses identified Newman's son in a lineup as being the younger man Carly had been seen with that day, the day that she died. Both men were arrested and went to trial. Newman claimed that all the items the investigators found in his house were nothing more than research for a book he was writing.
Oh, yeah, sure, buddy, sure.
He also claimed that he had bipolar disorder and OCD and that he had since been medicated and was all better now.
So never mind. Don't look at me as
I'm fine now. Yeah. I'm good. Go on your way. I'm fine.
Not the way it works, buddy.
He also claimed that he was asexual and couldn't be a predator that authorities had accused him of being because he felt no sexual attraction to anybody.
Except for little
girls.
He's
reaching here. Like he's
girls.
Going for everything, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
According to Newman, he had driven Carly and his son to a party on the night she died, but she had refused his offer of a ride home. So he and his son left her on the beach. 14, just leaving a 15-year-old on a beach.
15. Mm-hmm. Yep.
15, right. She had no clue how to get home. Like, not even in her
Strange
house.
city.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sounds totally plausible.
I just left her. I have no idea what happened to her after that. Yeah. Well, if that was true, he should be put in prison anyway.
There you go.
Gary Newman then threw his teenage son under a bus, claiming that it was him. He was the sole creator of the character and online persona Brandon Kane.
Wow, he is a piece of dirt. I mean, come on.
Bad. Gary's oldest son testified that Gary returned home angry and swearing after Sonia had thrown him out and that he was going to, quote, fix Carly up. According to his oldest son, he then asked both of his sons to help him kill her. The oldest son refused to help him and testified that at the time, he didn't really believe his father meant the threats until his father came home and showed off his bruised knuckles and confessed that he had killed Carly. And after that, the son moved out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I would say so.
Newman's youngest son testified that he helped his father dispose of Carly's body. Newman's ex-wife also came forward, making a statement where she stated that Newman was a violent sexual deviant. She went on to say that she lived in fear of Newman for a decade, the decade that they were married. She said he beat her to a bloody pulp and controlled where she went and who she saw. He forced her to work at a strip club, banned her from getting a driver's license, and kept all the money that she made so she was trapped and couldn't leave. His ex-wife also claimed that his family knew what a monster Gary was, but, they were in active denial. None of his lies mattered in the end because investigators played their trump card. That piece of latex glove that they found on the beach near Carly's belongings had DNA evidence on it. In fact, it had Gary's DNA.
I was going to say, let me guess whose DNA is on there.
So not only did the glove prove that Gary had killed Carly, but it proved that her murder had been premeditated. Because, people just don't walk around with latex gloves on for no reason, right? They wear them to either hide fingerprints and DNA. I mean, the only reason to do it is if the person wearing the gloves knows that they're going to commit a crime ahead of time. The jury found Gary Francis Newman guilty of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison with a non-parole period of 29 years. At his sentencing, the judge, Justice Trish Kelly, had this to say, quote, "It was a terribly cruel thing that you did to this beautiful, impressionable 15-year-old child. I say child because that's what she was. In love with the idea of a handsome, musically inclined, and rather exotic Brandon Kane, who spent Christmas in the United States and was coming home via Paris to be with her. The real man was an overweight, balding, middle-aged pedophile with sex and murder on his mind. When your deception came unraveled, you killed her, leaving in your wake a devastated and inconsolable, grief-stricken mother, family, and friends." And she also said, quote, "You were sexually obsessed with Carly to the degree that when you couldn't get your own way, you prepared to and did kill her."
She's a little girl.
After this baby. That's my daughter's age.
But how would you, oh my God, never mind. I'll never understand.
After the sentencing, Sonia Ryan said that she hoped Gary Newman, quote, "rots from the inside out." That's much nicer than what I would hope. Since there was no way to determine how much of Newman's younger son participated in the crimes against Carly, the jury acquitted him of both murder and manslaughter and continued to keep the security clause surrounding his identity intact.
I don't know about that.
However...
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
However, in 2017, just recently, Senator Hinch from Victoria, Australia, exposed Newman's youngest son in an impassioned plea to his fellow lawmakers. He and many journalists at the time said that the public had a right to know the name of the man, Stephen Newman, who had held Carly Ryan's legs down as his father raped her. The man, Stephen Newman, who helped throw her body into the bay. For the 3 years that Gary and Stephen were in custody, both father and son had their names suppressed from the press. Senator Hinch said, quote, "An Adelaide judge lifted the suppression order on the name and photographs of the father, but she continued a suppression order on the 19-year-old son, and it seemed like the media agreed to rewrite history. All of the stories that appeared about this case, you would think that Gary Newman acted alone at all times. The prosecution claimed that Brandon was a cyberspace alter ego created by both the father and the son, Gary and Stephen Newman, to seduce Carly Ryan. So what happened next? Stephen Newman went on to commit rapes of 13 girls under the age of 16 in Melbourne. He targeted them and stalked them, and for that he received only 35 months in jail.
Months?
Less than 3 years for all those brutal crimes, equaling about 10 weeks a victim. I know these sentencing details only from police sources because the county court refused to give out any information on the serial rapist because, supposedly, It is in the public's interest to hide these serial rapists' identities. This is why I'm naming this scumbag. He does not deserve any anonymity. He does not deserve a suppression order. Stephen Newman is now free. He is living out there anonymously in Melbourne tonight. He is back on Facebook. He is building another web, and he will offend again. He will rape again. So I ask you, as I have asked 1,000 times over the years, who is looking after the children? So maybe among all these lies that Gary Newman told on the stand, there was one small grain of truth. It's possible that his son Stephen was just as guilty as he was.
I think so.
But we tried to look, and there's no information we can be found of Newman's current whereabouts.
That, if I lived down there, I would make that my life's mission.
Carly Ryan was the first known Australian to be murdered by an online predator. Her mother established the Carly Ryan Foundation, a not-for-profit organization dedicated to promoting internet safety. Sonia has spent the years since her daughter's death educating teachers, children, and the public about the dangers of online interaction and social media networking. She was named South Australian of the Year for her efforts in 2013, and in June of 2017, after much work, Carly's law was entered into the Commonwealth Criminal Code by the Australian government. This makes it, quote, illegal for an adult to use the internet to prepare or to plan to cause harm to or engage in sexual activity with a minor or to lie about their age in any interaction with a minor. And it carries a 10-year maximum prison sentence.
Good.
The first arrest under this new law was made just a few weeks later, further proving that online predators are just as prevalent as they ever were.
Just a new way for them to target people, kids.
They, like the internet, they're not going to go anywhere. They're pretty much here to stay. Well, we must remember that love is nature's most powerful chemical cocktail. There's a bunch of medical and scientific words to explain what goes on in somebody's brains, right, when they're falling in love.
Yeah, totally.
But love is blind.
Well, especially...
You fall in love, you look over things.
You do. But a little kid, they don't have the brain power yet to understand that. And
some adults don't either.
No, for sure. No.
But Carly Ryan never stood a chance against a predator who was determined to get what he wanted. Neither she nor her mother had ever encountered a monster like Gary Newman. There was nothing in Carly's life that could have prepared her for him. Newman did not just set out to rape minors, he set out to completely destroy them. The judge's words upon sentencing Newman seemed almost too tame for what he actually did to Carly, and how absolutely heartbroken she must have been to learn that the truth in those last final moments of her life. I mean, that there was no Brandon, and there never was. It's thanks to people like Sonia that the internet is a safer place for adolescents, but it's unfortunate the price that we had to pay to get there.
No kidding.
And like most of us, Carly Ryan just wanted to be seen. She wanted to be loved and wanted to be wanted.
Yeah. Isn't that what all us humans want at the end of the day for the most part?
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. And just thinking about this as you were saying it, it was so new.
Right.
I mean, Mom, I'm talking to this cute boy named Brandon. Oh, yeah? Where's he from? He's 8 hours. You don't think about it.
And Sonia was very leery about it, but he was 8 hours away. What harm could it be, right?
And it's a kid. I would think it was a kid.
Yeah, he was older than she was. Like, he was 18. She was 14.
Too old.
But it was online, right? What harm is it going to do, right?
Yeah.
People portray themselves online as, yeah. I mean, we now know, but back in 2007.
That's what I mean. It was all brand new. Nobody really knew that existed yet.
No.
I mean, that was a way. And now, I mean, Chris Hansen,
right?
For these people that think that I'm going to go online and hook up with this teenager, nobody's ever going to know anything. Come on. Right.
And as far as I know, there's no internet safety bill or law in the United States, but there is U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal, and I forgot to write it down. I think he's Connecticut. He has introduced the Kids Online Safety Act bill, and that's S1409 if anybody wants to look it up. This bill sets out requirements to protect minors from online harm. Covered platforms must take reasonable measures in the design and operation of products or services used by minors to prevent and mitigate certain harms that may arise from that use. Examples are sexual exploitation and online bullying. I believe that was presented in December, and who the hell knows when that will be passed, if it ever will.
Well, it's just hard to track those people necessarily, too, you know? Wow.
But it looks like he's putting it on the platform to make sure that it doesn't happen. So
good. Thank you. Richard. Yeah. That's his name, right?
But it's really scary. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, when my kids were younger, we really didn't think too much about them playing those little fun games online until like weird chats seemed to happen. And then that's when we started to think, oh, okay, we need to get this situated a little bit.
Yeah. I remember walking out on my daughter. She was in middle school and she's giggling. I'm like, who are you talking to? She's like, I don't, these two guys. And I'm like, what do you mean two guys? Because chat roulette, which is like, you just end up talking to people. And I was like, girl, I don't think so.
Right.
They were like 22 and 23 or something like that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's,
Be a hard no.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
In the show notes, I will put, there are ways that you can report an online groomer. I have the tip line for Australia, the US, and the UK, and I'll put those in the show notes. There is a way that you can report people now, at least.
So creepy.
But this guy, like, he was a monster. Like, packaged meat. She's going to be packaged meat.
And I mean, he just got mad. He got mad because that he was turned down by a
child
kid.
Didn't want to be raped by a 48-year-old man. Because that's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Kids can't consent.
No.
It's rape. It's not sex. It's rape.
Well, you did a good job. Thank you. Who requested this?
Horrible.
Who was our...
Trish Miles requested this. Thanks, Trish.
Thanks, Trish. Not okay. Not okay.
Nope. Scary. That's all I got to tell you. It's scary.
You just, I don't know. And people are so trusting for the most part, you know? I've been talking to him for 6 months. I know him. No, you don't.
But I love him.
No,
yeah.
No, you don't.
At 18 months. They talked online for 18 months. She told him everything about herself, and he lied about everything about himself. But seriously, Brandon Kane and his dad, Shane Kane. I mean, that yeah.
He just thought.
But he had his own little world. Like, he had binders filled with his personas.
Well, see, and I think
even the minute little, he had it down.
Yeah. Well, to me, that tells me that part of all of this, to the game part, that was as much of a turn on for him than doing this, right?
Like, that's a long game to play. That's 18 months.
But if you're doing it with several different people, several different babies, and I'm sure that's what he was doing.
But it wasn't just in the people. It just wasn't in the towns close to him. He flew to the United States. He flew to Hong Kong. He flew distance. I mean, to be with these young girls, that's
let me tell you something.
Petrifying.
What about the people who fly to Thailand to have? Yeah. So there's that. It happens, and man, I tell you what, not much surprises me anymore. It's crazy.
Wow. But this one, man, total monster. Total monster.
And then he tried to blame his kid, and at first I was like, "What a jerk!" Well, now maybe they're both. You know what I mean? Both a little guilty for that.
Well, then his kid went on to rape more girls.
Like father, like son.
And he was under the protection of the court. Like, the judge, whether she knew it or not, they just released him out into the wild, and he was protected. Like,
it was like a... Yeah.
And I get why she did that, because if he really wasn't involved that much, you do want to...
But even if he held the girl's legs.
He was 19. I mean, he was old enough to be named.
Yep.
He helped with the body. He helped with Carly's body. He deserved to be named and shamed.
Yep, I agree.
And at least given some kind of jail sentence to help get rid of a body, you would think. He got away scot-free, and then he was left to rape other girls.
Yeah, how many other lives did he ruin?
Yep.
Well, good job, Jen. That was pretty... I don't know.
Horrifying is all I can do. It's horrifying. So
just forget how bad people can be.
I know. If you don't watch your kids online, watch them. And if you watch your kids online, watch them closer.
You just never know. You never know.
Yeah. I mean, my husband found like a back way to put something on Snapchat. So he could, because, Snapchat goes away after a while.
Yeah.
He found some kind of thing that would...
He could see what the kids were doing. And kids are sneaky. It's part of their little rebellion to do things.
It's part of being a kid, right?
Yeah, to keep things hidden from mom and dad.
Yeah. I mean, God knows what we would have done. That's all I can say.
I'm grateful we did not have the internet. I'll tell you that right now. Terrible.
For those that are completely new here, Cam and I are sponsoring a Dark History UK tour in June of 2025. That's not June of this year, 2024. That is June of next year, 2025. It is going to be so much fun. We have a great group going. There's room for a few more. You need to hop on it, especially, I think, April 1st. Prices are going to go up, so you want to get that booked now.
The trip's going to be June 13th to June 22nd. It is pretty much all inclusive. You get free breakfast every day and then 2 dinners, complete with wine and beer. So for the 8 nights, you will already have 2 of those nights taken care of for dinner. I think I said in one of the other shows on the trip that I did this past summer, I would just eat a lot at breakfast. And then if we were having a dinner that night, then I just skip lunch, have a snack or something, a little something in the afternoon. But so I really only ate 2 meals. So that's how I did it. But hotels, 4-star hotels, flights are covered. The tour excursions are all covered.
Deluxe coach buses are going to take us from Edinburgh to York to London. York's going to be a blast. I mean, it's all going to be a blast. There's going to be ghost tours. There's going to be criminal tours. There's going to be all sorts of fun, ancient, criminally, anything that you would think dark history is, we're going to try to go do it, right?
Yes, correct.
It's going to be fun. I'm really excited. In York, there's a place called The Shambles. It's like a little working place that was taken, I guess Hollywood got its idea from Diagon. I can't even say it right.
Oh, I can't either.
Diagon Alley from Harry Potter.
Sounds about right.
It's kind of built around The Shambles. And there is like a little store that you can go buy your own ghost in that I really want to go into. And
you going to bring one home?
I'm going to bring as many as I can home. Of course I am.
Of course you are.
But we're also going to try to do some little meetups at a bar or somewhere. Mm-hmm. So if you're in the areas and you're not going to go on the trip, you can come meet us. Probably try to get some other podcasters that are in the area to join us. We'll let you know as that gets closer.
It's going to be so fun.
But it's going to be a great time. It's going to be a great time. So if you ever wanted to go over to the UK but never had anybody to go with, you got Cam and I.
Yep.
We'll be your new besties.
You're going to have a busload of new best friends. You're welcome.
And if you're worried about traveling alone, don't be.
We have some singletons going. Yep. We have some solo travelers going. So we're all good. It's
going to be a great time. And if you like us on air, you're going to like us in person because we are pretty much, we're a little bit censored here, but what you hear is what you get.
Yeah,
we're not putting on airs or anything. I mean,
might be a good thing. Might not. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll get it. But we are who we are. And
It'll be fun.
It'll be fun. If you need any information, you can go to ourtruecrimepodcast.com and find out all about it. If you want to email us at ourtruecrimepodcast@gmail.com, we can set you up with a phone call from the tour people, and they can tell you all the ins and outs and everything you need to know. You can also get in touch with us through a DM on Twitter, or I guess it's X now, and through Instagram. Just however, but it's going to be fun.
Come on.
You don't want to miss out on it.
You don't. Nobody wants FOMO.
No, FOMO is so hard on the soul.
Out. Yes, it is.
Yes. So anyway, that's it.
All right. Until next time, remember, lock your doors.
And keep passing by those open windows.
Bye-bye.
Love ya. For more information about this episode, as well as all other sources, please check out our show notes or the podcast website at ourtruecrimepodcast.com. Our True Crime Podcast is developed and created by the hosts, Jen and Cam. Original music and audio mix of all our True Crime Podcast episodes is courtesy of Nico Vertesi from We Talk of Dreams. You can reach Nico at wetalkofdreams.com. Listener discretion is provided by Edward October from OctoberPod VHS. You can find all of his great works on YouTube. Please make sure to like and subscribe to our True Crime Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. We can be reached on Instagram and Facebook at Our True Crime Podcast or on Twitter with the handle at Our True Crime Pod. You can also email us at ourtruecrimepodcast@gmail.com. We would also at this time like to thank our patrons. We would be so lost without you. Thank you so much. And if you would like to help support the show, you can check us out on patreon.com/Our True Crime Podcast. You can also show your support by leaving a 5-star review on Apple or simply just tell your friends about us. It's that easy. Love ya.